Yes, that's a little bit about what's going on in the next few weeks here at Unity Center of Peace. So, hello, good morning. I hope you're all well. So, today we begin our exploration of what it takes to experience peace within ourselves and what it takes to create peace in the world. And to help us in this exploration, we're going to pull from this wisdom. The Arbinger Institute has published this book called The Anatomy of Peace. The Anatomy of Peace. We're using this for our inspiration. Since we are Unity Center of Peace, I thought maybe that would be a good fit. So the book is really set in this kind of fictional story that about two men, an Israeli and a Palestinian, who we find out a little later have every reason to hate each other. And instead, they decide to come together and work through it and to resolve their conflict. And in doing that, they heal a whole history of stuff, and they're so successful in it, and they develop these strategies that not only work for them but work for other people. So they decide to together to open a kind of an outward bound place for troubled teens, that kind of a program. And while the teens are away on their wilderness adventure, the two co-founders, Avi and Yusuf, work with the true source of the conflict, which are the parents. And they teach them about these mindset shifts that we'll be exploring in the next few weeks that really help them to create peace and resolve conflict in their own families. And so through the story, it's the story, we're getting the story, but of course it's speaking to all of us. And so we are learning that there are these certain mindsets that we can all get trapped in that that sort of almost invite conflict. And then we learn strategies for building loving, cooperative relationships that proactively resist conflict. Any of you ever experienced any conflict with anyone in your life? I'm guessing yes. I mean, it's just, we all do. It seems to be a part of life. Some people seem to experience more conflict than others. And those people might tell you it's because they have to deal with a lot of difficult people, you see. That there's, they have to deal with difficult people in their work environment. They have to deal with difficult people in their families. They have to deal with difficult people. But what we're learning here is that we all have the power within us to create peace in any moment, in any environment, and in any relationship. And it feels like there is conflict all around us, doesn't it? There's conflict in business, there's conflict within organizations, there's conflict in politics, certainly. We see that, differing ideologies ripe with conflict. There's conflict between the cities and the rural areas, between states. There's conflict between countries. It's just everywhere. Conflict is everywhere. And it feels like it's been with us from the very beginning of time. I mean, look at the Old Testament. But you know what else has been with us from the very beginning? Is a power within us to be able to open to the peace that is within us and to create that peace in our world. That's been with us from the very beginning. I mean, if we can connect with peace in our hearts and we can learn to create peace in our relationships, there's hope for us. You know, there's hope for our families. There's hope for our countries. There's hope for the world. So the story is centered around, in the beginning, the story is centered around this family. Lou is the father, husband, and his wife, Carol, and their son, Corey, who's in a lot of trouble. So that's why they've come to this Outward Bound program to enroll him in this. And we find out pretty early on that Lou is an ex-Marine. He's done a few tours of duty in Vietnam. And his behavior is kind of rough, and he's, demanding, opinionated, forceful kind of guy. That's kind of the what we get from his behavior. And then we find out a little bit later on that the company, he's created a company, but it's in serious trouble. His top executives it's like this mass exodus, right? He's losing all his best people, mainly because of his behavior. And, but he doesn't know this, right? He doesn't recognize that. And so he's feeling some conflict. And on top of that, his son, Corey, has gotten into drugs. He's taking drugs, he's selling drugs, he's stealing for drugs, and he's gotten caught. In fact, he's just been released from serving a prison sentence. And the interesting thing is that Corey's very different from his older siblings. They're all on this walking the straight and narrow path. One is very smart. She's a student in MIT. Another one is grown and a professional. And so the father, Lou, regards Corey as the huge disappointment in the family, as a huge disappointment. And Corey feels that, you see. And Lou has done everything he can to try to change Corey's behavior. He's tried everything unsuccessfully. And in this interaction between Lou and the co-founder Yusuf, we learn that, again, it's the story in the book, but it's speaking to all of us. We learn that most of us are unsuccessful in trying to change other people when we try hard to change other people. I mean, think about it in your own life. Have you ever tried to change someone's behavior, like maybe your child or a spouse or someone in your family? You try to reason with them, you dangle carrots, you try sticks, you try all these manipulative tactics to try to get them to change. And ultimately, how successful are you in that? Instead, Yusuf tells us that, instead of trying to change other people, we must become an agent of change. We must become an agent of change. So he says, I become an agent of change to the degree that I begin to live to help things go right, rather than simply to correct things that are going wrong. And that's a big point in this book, that most of us spend way more time trying to fix things that are going wrong than we do, actively helping things to go right. So think about that in your life. How much time do you feel you spend trying to dealing with or trying to fix things that are going wrong? And how much time do you spend actively helping things to go right? And we can change that, see? We can shift that, because the more time that we spend actively trying to help things go right, the less time we're going to need to fix things that have gone wrong. And we do that. We become an agent of change by investing time into creating relationships, building relationships by listening, learning, relating to others as people, as individuals with hopes and dreams and fears and needs just like us, as opposed to regarding others as objects, a troubled teen, a nagging spouse, a demanding boss, a lazy employee, a nosy neighbor, or those others, those Republicans, those Democrats, Black people, white people, Hispanics. Our hearts are at war when we relate to others as objects, as categories that we paint with this broad brushstroke instead of individuals, people with hopes and dreams and fears and needs just like us. Our hearts are at war when we relate to others when we think of others as obstacles to getting what we want. You can see that playing out pretty clearly in our Congress. It's a good example. But can you see that playing out in your life? Or our hearts are at war when we relate to people as vehicles for getting what we want, or as maybe irrelevant. When our hearts are at war, there's no peace in our life. There's no harmony. And we have a more difficult time thinking clearly, making clear-headed decisions. But when we begin to see everyone as an individual, again, an individual with hopes, dreams, fears, needs, just like us, our hearts are at peace. So creating peace is more than, it goes deeper than, trying to change our behavior. It's more about a way of being. Shifting a way of being, shifting our way of thinking, shifting our way of seeing. And when our hearts are at peace, there is harmony in our lives. There's harmony in our lives. And we give ourselves the best chance to make clear-headed decisions, to think clearly. And also, it says in the book that it also gives us an advantage in negotiations. You think about it, when we understand, or when we attempt to understand the other side's concerns and worries, and we consider them as much as we do our own, we connect. We can get agreement, right? So, this book is targeted to a secular audience. In fact, some corporations are actually using this program with their employees. Isn't that great news? Right? Wow. I mean, if you can create peace within corporate America, there really is hope. And so because it's written for that, it's written secular language. But, when you're reading it, you can see how they're saying the same things that we say in Unity. They just use in different words. Actually, some of them are the same. This whole idea of a way of being, we talk about that here, right? That way of being. We talk about peace in our hearts, creating peace in our lives. And this idea of relating to others as human beings, yes, and we kind of take it a little deeper because our goal is to see the divine in everyone, to see the divine, like the true meaning of namaste. The divine in me sees and honors the divine in you. That's our goal, to see the divinity in each person, to look past the mistakes, to look past the, different political leanings, different opinions, and to focus on that core of that person, the divine core within that person, within everyone. Which, okay, not so easy to do, right? It's not always easy to do it. This takes practice, particularly when someone is behaving badly, or they're expressing an opinion that is 180 degrees from yours. It's not easy. But if we can practice it, if we can practice and just incorporate this a little bit more every day and build on this a little bit more every day, which we're going to be doing over the next 5 weeks. This is a series that is running over the next 5 weeks. So we'll have a chance to really explore these ideas, learn the strategies, begin to practice it together. And when we do, we'll begin to see that other people are responding to us in the way that we are regarding them. We'll notice people respond to us in the way that we are regarding them. It reminds me of that Goethe quote, treat others as if they were what they should be, and you help them become what they're capable of becoming. All right. That's how we become a positive influence. That's how we are an agent of true change. So I think one of the most clear examples of this, to see this in action, and I've just run across this again recently. I just saw this again recently. It's that time in 1969, and this is on YouTube, and we're going to show this in a minute, of Fred Rogers, AKA Mr. Rogers. And he goes before Congress in order to save the funding for public television. Public television at that time was, and many other times, was on the chopping block. It was threatened to be defunded. Some senators just didn't see the value in public educational programming, so they had a difficult time justifying the expenditure. So Fred comes before this senator, Pastore, John Pastore was his name, who was known to have this rough demeanor, and he's, kind of no nonsense, hard hitting kind of guy. But Fred does not approach him with statistics or arguments to try to change him, to try to change his mind. And he doesn't see him as an object. He doesn't see him as a self-interested politician known for, a tough demeanor. He sees him, he regards him as a human being, as a divine being, as somebody with a heart who deep down cares about children as much as he does. So we're going to play this now and see what happens when he does that.
Rogers is certainly one of the best things that's ever happened to public television, and his Peabody Award is testament to that fact. We in public television are proud of Fred Rogers, and I'm proud to present Mr. Rogers to you now. Fred.
All right, Rogers, you got the floor.
Senator Pastore, this is a philosophical statement and would take about 10 minutes to read, so I'll not do that. One of the first things that a child learns in a healthy family is trust. And I trust what you have said, that you will read this. It's very important to me. I care deeply about children. My first children...
Will it make you happy if you read it?
I'd just like to talk about it, if it's all right.
Sir. Okay.
My first children's program was on WQED 15 years ago, and its budget was $30. Now, with the help of the Sears Roebuck Foundation and National Educational Television, as well as all of the affiliated stations, each station pays to show our program. It's a unique kind of funding in educational television. With this help, now our program has a budget of $6,000. It may sound like quite a difference, but $6,000 pays for less than 2 minutes of cartoons, 2 minutes of animated, what I sometimes say, bombardment. I'm very much concerned, as I know you are, about what's being delivered to our children in this country. And I've worked in the field of child development for 6 years now, trying to understand the inner needs of children. We deal with such things as the inner drama of childhood. We don't have to bop somebody over the head to make him to make drama on the screen. We deal with such things as getting a haircut, or the feelings about brothers and sisters, and the kind of anger that arises in simple family situations. And we speak to it constructively.
How long a program is it?
It's a half hour every day. Most channels schedule it in the noontime as well as in the evening. WETA here has scheduled it in the late afternoon.
Could we get a copy of this so that we can see it? Maybe not today, but I'd like to see the program.
I'd like very much for you
I'd
to
like to see the program itself, or any one of them, you see.
We made 100 programs for EEN, the Eastern Educational Network, and then when the money ran out, people in Boston and Pittsburgh and Chicago all came to the fore and said, we've got to have more of this neighborhood expression of care. And this is what I give. I give an expression of care every day to each child to help him realize that he is unique. I end the program by saying, you've made this day a special day by just your being you. There's no person in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are. And I feel that if we in public television can only make it clear that feelings are mentionable and manageable, we will have done a great service for mental health. I think that it's much more dramatic that two men could be working out their feelings of anger, much more dramatic than showing something of gunfire. I'm constantly concerned about what our children are seeing. And for 15 years, I have tried in this country and Canada to present what I feel is a meaningful expression of care.
Do you narrate it?
I'm the host, yes, and I do all the puppets, and I write all the music, and I write all the scripts.
Well, I'm supposed to be a pretty tough guy, and this is the first time I've had goosebumps for the last 2 days.
Well, I'm grateful not only for your goosebumps, but for your interest in our kind of communication. Could I tell you the words of one of the songs which I feel is very important?
Yes.
This has to do with that good feeling of control, which I feel that children need to know is there. And it starts out, what do you do with the mad that you feel? And that first line came straight from a child. I work with children, doing puppets in very personal communication with small groups? What do you do with the mad that you feel when you feel so mad you could bite? When the whole wide world seems oh so wrong and nothing you do seems very right? What do you do? Do you punch a bag? Do you pound some clay or some dough? Do you round up friends for a game of tag or see how fast you go? It's great to be able to stop when you've planned a thing that's wrong and be able to do something else instead and think this song. I can stop when I want to, can stop when I wish, can stop, stop, stop anytime. And what a good feeling to feel like this and know that the feeling is really mine. Know that there's something deep inside that helps us become what we can. For a girl can be someday a lady, and a boy can be someday a man.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. Looks like you just earned the $20 million.
You see, it was his way of being. It was his heart at peace and how he regarded that senator that won him over. And this is something that he practiced. If you've ever seen a documentary or the movie that was starring, I think, Tom Hanks the last few years, you know that this is something he worked on. He was a very spiritual guy. He was very serious about his practice. He practiced this. It didn't necessarily come, come naturally. He practiced it. He worked on it. So I hope you will practice these strategies with me over the next few weeks. And we also have some book studies lined up that you can join. There's one in person on Sunday afternoon that I'm facilitating, and there is one on Friday morning via Zoom with Maria Kavanaugh, who will be leading that one. She's our board president, actually very familiar with this work. So we hope to see you then. Namaste.